the future. Most empires have their time in the sun and inevitably decline. Reversing a decline is difficult because that requires undoing a lot that's already been done, but it's possible. By looking at these indicators, it's pretty easy to see which stage of the big cycle an empire is in, how fit it is, and whether its condition is improving or worsening, which can help one estimate how many years it has left. Still, these estimates aren't precise, and the cycle can be extended if those in charge pay attention to their vital signs and improve them. For example, knowing that a person is 60 years old, how fit they are, whether they smoke or not, and a few other basic vital signs, one can estimate the person's longevity. One can do that with empires and their vital signs too. It won't be precise, but it will be broadly indicative and give clear direction on steps to take to increase longevity. It's most often the case that a nation's greatest war is with itself over whether or not it can make the hard decisions needed to sustain success. As for what we need to do, it comes down to just two things: earn more than we spend and treat each other well. All other things I mentioned, strong education, inventiveness, being competitive, and all the rest, are just ways of getting at these two things. It's easy to measure if we're doing them. So like people who want to get fit, let's get on the program and improve our vitals. Let's do that individually and collectively. My goal for sharing this picture of how the world works and a few principles for dealing with it well is to help you recognize where we are and the challenges we face, and to make the wise decisions needed to navigate these times well. Since there is a lot more to discuss and we are out of time, you can learn more in my book, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order, and I look forward to continuing this conversation at economicprinciples.org and on social media. Thank you, and may the force of evolution be with you.
Are we, in your judgment, in a moment in which the world order is going to change?
Yes, we're changing the world order, okay? In 1945, we started the New World Order. What I mean is, throughout history, there's a fight. There's a fight for power. So there's a war, and then the winners come out of that war, and the winners set the rules. 1945, the United States had 80% of the world's money. Gold was money at the time. It had half the world's GDP. It had a monopoly on military power. So the U.S. set the world order. That's why the United Nations is in New York. Washington, D.C. has the IMF and the World Bank.
And its currency became the reserve currency.
And its currency became the reserve currency because of that set of circumstances. Things evolve. Things change, okay, over history. So the three big things that are changing now that haven't occurred in our lifetime is the amount of debt and money creation.
Large debt means the printing of money.
Right. The large debt puts central bankers in a choice. Do you pay it back with hard money, or do you pay it back with printed devalued money? And if you pay it back with hard money, it's hard. In other words, that's when you have debt crises. So in all cases, they eventually print money, and that produces inflation, right? So that dynamic's the first.
And that's the place we are at this moment.
That's the place we are at this moment. Okay. The second is when there's a great internal conflict, usually when there's a large wealth and values gap, and at the same time as you have a financial problem. Then you get populism of the left and populism of the right. In other words, those who feel disenfranchised want people who are going to fight for them. They don't want compromisers. They don't want them to be in the middle, because middle means that they're not fighting for them. They want them to have guts. So that you have populists of the left and populists
And
of
their
the
positions harden.
and their positions harden, and there are no compromises. That's why we're potentially in a situation that you could see in one of these elections, maybe in 2024, that neither side would accept losing. Perhaps we see that. You see, maybe you don't follow the rulings of the Supreme Court. So these things have not happened in our lifetime, but they happened many times in history. So if you look at that, you see from those patterns why the gaps become greater and the positions harden, and you see the dynamic. So that's the second. And the third is the rise of a great power to challenge the existing great power. In other words, I gave you the example of how the United States was so dominant in 1945. Now it's not as dominant. It is not dominant. In other words, China and the opposition is as strong as the United States and its allies. And so we have a conflict. And there are 5 kinds of wars. And they start in this order, just sequentially, typically. A trade war, a technology war, a geopolitical influence war. Then you get into a capital and economic warfare, which we are now with sanctions. They always happened in history. And then there's a military war. And so you could see that progression happen through time. And that creates a template. So I like to look at the template and then plot dots to see how we're transpiring relative to that template.
미국 등 서방 국가들과 각을 세우고 있는 중국, 러시아가 인도, 중국, 남아프리카 공화국을 대상으로 동조 세력 확보에 나섰습니다.
미국 바이든 행정부가 러시아 군과 방산업계를 지원했다는 이유로 중국 기업 5곳을 제재 대상에 올렸습니다.
유럽의 다국적 회사인 에어버스가 중국 항공사들로부터 항공기 292대를 한꺼번에 주문받았습니다. 항공사의 경영적 판단이라기보다는 중국 당국의 정치적 결정에 따른 몰아주기식 구매로 보입니다.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes,
You are.
that's the commitment we made.
여러분 안녕하세요. 상한가 가이드입니다. 저희는 돈이 되는 부업과 재테크에 대한 정보를 제공하는 공유방을 운영하고 있습니다. 영상을 보신 후 하단 고정 댓글 링크를 통해 공유방 입장 안내를 받아보시길 바라겠습니다. 상한가 가이드 구독, 좋아요, 알림 설정까지 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.